Hello, seniors. So now that you have a poem from your country, I put together this model really fast. I don't even like this poem, but there's my poem translated in English. There it is in Russian. And then as we get to the second page, I have my two works cited. I actually made my in-class kids do a little bit more work because I could be right here to check their works cited. So you guys should have just two. What we're going to now add is I'm going to have you take your facts about your poem and type that up into a paragraph. I'd like you to work with nice transition words. So what I did when I made this model is I left just a few things blank to highlight a couple transition words. Thought it wouldn't hurt, again, to help get some of these words back into your toolbox, words that you're going to be using and remembering when you write college papers, etc., etc. Okay, so don't worry. The instructions for doing this is on a separate assignment, and we'll tell you exactly, walk you through exactly what to do, but I want to highlight a couple of things about the project. So up here at the top, it's actually going to say number 5, and then famous poem, and then you will take your facts that you already wrote and write your own paragraph with your own writing about your poet, okay? In my case, the poet Nikolai Gumilev lived from 1886 to 1921, and in his early years he fell in love with a purportedly female author, but the author turned out to be a pseudonym for two people, a woman and then this random man named Voloshin, and Gumilev ended up getting in a duel with Voloshin about the issue, which sounds really illogical to me. Anyway, to start off this next paragraph, put in the word like. So it reads, like many young intellectuals of his day. That's a nice, sophisticated way to start a sentence. Like many young intellectuals of his day, he was fascinated with Africa and developed a fondness for writing about giraffes and hippos. He served as a soldier in World War I and then developed the Poetic Acmeist movement, a group of poets dedicated to clarity. It didn't last terribly long, and it was just a bunch of poets that would meet, have coffee together and talk about things. And kind of develop their own style. The next blank should say despite, or you could say in spite of his service to his country, he fell out of favor with the communists and was executed by firing squad on August the 22nd, 1921. Oops. Now, what I have here is the in-text citation, okay? This happens to not be the author's last name. Okay, I want you to look at my works cited. Where I actually got my poem was from the author himself. So there he is, Gumilev Nikolai, but that's not for this in-text citation. I actually got that information on the poet from Wikipedia. There was no author. Okay, Nikolai Gumilev is the title of my article. Okay, the in-text citation will always be the first thing listed in the works cited. Always. Because what does the in-text citation do? You want people to be able to go to the bibliography, whether it's, MLA style, we call it works cited, sometimes they call it references, sometimes they call it bibliography, sometimes it's in footnotes, and you want to be able to just scroll down the list and find it, okay? Now, back to this paragraph. So that being said, Nikolai Gumilev was the title of my website, and because there was no author, and that makes the in-text citation. Now, the way I have it set up, all the facts in the entire paragraph come from that one source. Okay, if I was changing sources, I would have maybe an in-text citation here and here and here. But it's kind of like the in-text citation covers everything back up to the top of the paragraph. Okay, so you don't need to cite after every sentence. Okay, this will let you know. My facts come from that source. Kind of cool? So you'll do the same thing. You write about your poet, in-text citation, and then you'll put your poem. When I was originally doing this, I needed an example really super fast, and because I blew it up really big for my in-class kids. So I picked this poem, and I hate it. I think it's an awful poem. There it is. Look at that. Why don't we make them distinguish our thoughts with heart's vibration, skirmish, spirals of the losers, times and spaces, temple alone will be joined by happy nations to become the heavy stones for the future generations. I don't know what that's saying and don't really care. So, after you put the poem in, I'm going to have you analyze the poem, and I think I'm going to specify, I can't remember if it's 6 or 8. I think I'll have you guys do 8. Anyway, on the assignment, there'll be a list of things to look for. Everything from, do you like the poem or not? Is there assonance and consonants? Is it metered? And you can pick. Okay, you can pick. Like I think I'll have you do 8. You can pick and then write it up. You'll notice in here that I definitely mentioned I don't like the poem, and we'll talk about why. And again, I've got some blanks to fill in. So here's what I wrote about that kind of dumb poem. This is a 4-stanza poem that rhymes but has no meter and has been translated into standard, educated, modern English. I actually discussed 4 things right there. I noticed it's not metered, it rhymes, and it's in a standard, educated, modern English. They didn't make it old-fashioned English or slangy. It's a challenging poem to interpret, but it appears to suggest that modern people's thoughts are angsty and bleak and tired, and a certain loser mentality will be passed on to future generations. That's what I got out of the poem anyway. So I'm talking about what I think it means. There's another thing. I personally do not care for this poem, and then there's a bunch of things you could put in here. What I wanted to highlight, you could have something like due to the fact that, which is not bad. I kind of like this thing, which isn't used very much. In as much as. It's just a synonym for because. And I personally do not care for this poem because, due to the fact, in as much as. Yeah, I think that's all that would fit in there. Because it contains so many abstract concepts, I prefer writing that is centered in reality as opposed to poetry that attempts to sound deep because it uses such overly philosophical, highly esoteric phrases such as spirals of the losers and signature of hardness. There's not enough context to figure out what these phrases mean. I mean, they sound kind of cool, but it doesn't really make sense. This is a fun word right here, this word esoteric. Esoteric means obscure. And it's used when something is so almost falsely intellectual, all these high intellectual phrases, like Tim Erickson's poetry, I think. Anyway, very esoteric, intellectual sounding, but it goes over your head, very obscure, hard to figure out. Esoteric, it's a good word. That being said, I'm impressed that the translator managed to mimic the every other line rhyme scheme. Okay, I wanted to go back and talk about make a check. I talked about why I don't like it. So far I've talked about 5 things. That being said, I'm impressed that the translator managed to mimic the every other line rhyme scheme of the original. I also noticed that there's assonance that connects the words cry and lies and spirals and time. It's nice. As well as alliteration that connects the words darkness and dreams and happy and heavy. Those are nice. On the whole, wrapping it up with the word therefore, on the whole, therefore, I find that this poem has some literary merit in its sound quality. Let's just do a nice simple yet. Yet it fails to impress me with any graspable meaning. Ooh, ah. Okay, so that is exactly what I'll have you do. Again, you can pick from a lot of things that you could do, but put in about 8 things, maybe 1 paragraph or 2 will be about all you need. And then you'll have your works cited. I want you to notice, okay, fix your works cited if it's not like this, okay? I had you guys, of course, center the words works cited, but a lot of people then kept the bibliographic reference centered, okay? You need to take it back over to the left, so it's all left justified. Left justified. Okay? And then, as your bibliography goes on to a second line, or maybe even to a third line, they indent Okay. Oh, and notice that it's double-spaced. Okay, please don't make me fix these. Go back and fix yours. I've got a lot of them corrected. I gave you some help, but here's what it should look like, okay? Left justified, double-spaced, and then to get the second lines to indent is kind of tricky, because if you just try a tab, it will tab too much over. The computer will try to be too helpful. So what you do is you put your cursor right here on the second line, and you push Enter, and then you push Tab. And then it will allow you to indent where you need to. You know, if there's a third line, it would start here, blah, 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 blah. Okay? So you guys should have this works cited is for the poem itself. This one is for my poet facts. And then that's complete. That's what I'm going to have you turn in for term. We're not going to do anything more about your country or your the folk tales that go along with it. We'll just get to that point. Okay. Hey, if you listen to this instead of just, you know, scrolling to the end, would you put, let's see, what should I have you draw? Something Russian. Snow. Aha! Okay. Right here by the works cited, would you please put a snowman? You can draw a little snowman, little circles, little arm things, or maybe some snow coming down. Because I would prefer it that you indeed listen to that, as I gave you, I think, some useful information. Anyway, then upload that, and then I'll work next on getting the actual instructions for doing that and completing this poetry project. I'll work on that next. Okay, talk to you later. Bye-bye.